The time has finally come to upgrade probably one of the most important tools in my shop. But if you're just getting started in woodworking or maybe wanting a second budget router setup, you can't beat this Bosch package. It's crazy the projects and jobs and money this setup has made and allowed me to build out my shop and upgrade other machines first. And a new router table itself simply hasn't been a priority since I've always gotten great results with this one. Sure, it's not the most user-friendly or as fast and accurate as what I'll be building here in this video, but for the price, it can't be beat. The lifting mechanism has completely stripped out and the router itself has died, but I'll most likely go ahead and put a new router and base in this table and keep it set up for certain tasks that I do a lot. Anyways, just wanted to include that little review there before I get started building the new router table cabinet, which I will have full build plans for linked down below if you want to build your own. But as you can see, like most shop projects, I start by taking an inventory of what scrap material I have on hand to use up first. Even though it's a shop cabinet, I do want it to look good on the outside at least, so for the two main side panels that you'll see and all the drawer fronts, I do have a new sheet of maple plywood to use for that, but for the inside of the cabinet and drawers, I don't care one bit what those look like, so a lot of that will be this red oak plywood I had and just a random mix of other offcuts. With all the main cabinet parts cut to size, since this is a frameless cabinet, I did go ahead and edge band the front edges that you'll see. Yes, even putting maple edge banding on the red oak pieces, so once it's assembled, no one's the wiser. If you have the space when edge banding, I like to set up several pieces at a time, so I can go through and get the banding ironed on multiple pieces. Then by the time I get back to the first one to trim the excess off, the glue has completely cooled down and dried. With the glue completely set, I feel like it really helps with preventing tear out on the edge banding, and this way with several pieces set up, there's no waiting around, so you can just keep moving and get this knocked out pretty quick. Now to assemble the pieces, I'm primarily using pocket hole screws and glue, and just some regular butt screws where possible too. As you can see here, I'm just using other actual pieces of the cabinet dividers to make sure the internal cabinet pieces line up right where they should, getting everything glued and screwed together. Before attaching the back panel, next I went ahead and got all the drawer slides installed, mainly so I could film and you guys actually be able to see through the back, but it does help to get this done now with plenty of light inside the cabinet. I am doing inset door and drawer fronts on this, so I'm just setting the slides back 3/4 of an inch, the thickness of the drawer fronts, and using spacers to get the slides screwed on and even on both sides. If you're following the plans and building this for yourself, on these small pullouts up top, you can go ahead and attach these slides to the side panels way back before you assemble a cabinet at all to make it easy, but really I recommend picking up one of these angle attachments for your drill anyways if you don't have one. They come in handy all the time for small areas like this, and then the M12 impact is so small I don't even need the adapter on that one. With the slides installed, next I could get the 1/4" plywood back panel glued and nailed on, as well as getting the caster screwed on before moving this thing down to the floor. Now for the heart of this new setup, I decided to go with the Jessam router lift, fence, and other accessories. Incra, Woodpeckers, Rockler, and there's others, all seem to have really nice router setups nowadays. And I'll be honest, these boxes have been sitting in my shop for probably 9 months now, waiting for me to have time to build this, which in hindsight, this only took a few hours, so I shouldn't have waited so long, but I digress. So I believe there may have been a sale on this back when I ordered, but ultimately, I've just been really impressed with my other Jessam products that I have, and it's all just really high quality stuff. This is the 24 by 32 inch phenolic tabletop, but again, speaking back to the build plans, there's plenty of wiggle room here, and most router tabletops should fit this cabinet no matter which brand you go with. Or of course, you can just make your own top really easily, which saves some money too. I also have a big upgrade in the router itself here, going with a 3.5 horsepower Milwaukee router versus my old 2.25 horsepower Bosch. The mounting bracket on this Jessam power switch wouldn't really work how I wanted with the cabinet, but I just used the same mounting screw holes as a template to drill right through the cabinet side. Then I just had to rummage through my spare bolt collection that will always come in handy one day to find some longer bolts to just go through the plywood right into the same holes on the switch. Now I did something incredibly dangerous for a shop project. It was usable at this point, so I stopped working on it so I could use it on a project. But I was disciplined, and now just a few days later, let's get this finished up. First, tidying up the router power cord into that external switch. Since I'll have a drawer to the left of the router, I just brought the power cord out the back and then around to the switch. And I had some of these cord grommets, so I used one of those to make the hole smaller once the plug was passed through to fancy that up. Moving on to the drawer boxes with a random mix of scrap plywood. Just some basic shop drawers here with pocket screws and 1/4" plywood glued and nailed on the bottom. Nothing fancy. But of course, if you have any questions at all on this build, or any comments at all, be sure to drop them below. I always try to reply to everyone. Really, the comments, likes, and making sure you're subscribed to the channel really helps me out and determines the success of these videos. So come on, help a brother out. Man, these drawers are massive though, and being able to have all my router stuff organized here together now is going to be so awesome. Up next is the 2 pull-out organizers that go up top on both sides of the router, just gluing and brad nailing the pieces together. And I point that out because I already shared their short clip on Instagram, and someone left a comment asking, no screws? And I think the power of wood glue is something a lot of people underestimate. Once this glue dries, these pieces are not coming apart without taking a mallet to it and the plywood itself breaking first. Of course, you can add screws for added insurance, but it's just not always necessary, especially on something light duty like this. Again, don't underestimate the power of wood glue. For drawer slides like this, where there's 2 on one side, I like to just do the math, or follow my plans, and just get one of them attached to the box. Then I'll go ahead and reinsert the other piece back into the slide and install the drawer box with the one slide. Then I can attach the second slide right in place. This just takes out any possible measurement errors and ensures both slides work together smoothly. Up next is cutting the door and drawer fronts to size, and I did apply the iron-on edge banding to these pieces off camera as well. Here I'm getting the holes for the drawer pulls drilled, so I can use these holes to get the fronts attached to the boxes. Just starting from the bottom, using spacers to get the fronts centered, temporarily using those holes to drive in screws and hold the front in place, so I can then pull the drawer out and get it permanently attached from the inside. For the inset door hinges, if my big head wasn't in the way, you could see I'm using a little rockler jig to get these holes pre-drilled and the hinge bracket installed. If this is the only inset door you ever install, of course it's not worth it to spend money on a special jig, but if it's something you do even a handful of times, buying jigs like this or making your own really saves a lot of time. With this being an inset door, next I just glue and pin nail a little block in place so the door stops right flush with the front of the cabinet. I have several of these cabinet door router bit sets, so you can see I spaced these pullouts with that in mind, so I could go ahead and keep them in their case, and then I'll have individual bit storage on the top. I could take everything out of these bigger cases too and make a bunch of individual custom storage, but I don't know, these are nice sets and it seems silly to throw the boxes away, so I'm just going with this one piece of Kaizen foam for now on the top for individual bits. I've shown cutting foam organizers on the CNC before, but I wanted to try just drilling the holes out, and this works just fine, even with a handheld drill. The tape I put on top was just so I could draw some layout lines without marking all over the foam. And that's it. Like I said at the beginning, this shop upgrade, even though I use the router a ton, hasn't been a big priority. But man, this is a huge upgrade, and I'm glad to finally have it. Plans and all the products I used are linked below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thank you for watching.